be in that way with this feeling. And for me, it's a little bit like experimenting a new way to make some interaction also with the audience, I hope. So, myself, I'm not an art critic. I am a practitioner, I'm a ceramic artist. I have been invited here as a juror, and I am also a professor in Switzerland, and in that case, particularly, I am interested in the question of criticism. About criticism, I've been invited to the United States in Santa Fe last year. That was the topic of this conference. And then I discovered that criticism in our field is, in fact, I would say, not easy to find. We have many people writing about ceramic, but a real critic approach, I mean, like we have in theater, in literature, in music, is very difficult to find. So I found a new concept from this conference that I proposed to the audience there, which was marketicism, contraction between two things, which is marketing and criticism. Very often I found that the articles written about ceramic are just a way to market the work. So I hope I will not hurt too many people in the audience by saying this, but it's also my role to provoke a little bit here. So beyond the four, in the frame of the four manifestations, that was the choice of the curator about this exhibition. I was in charge to speak about existential manifestation. So first is, but what can we do else than existential manifestation? I don't see what can we do else than this. So, in the real life, I mean, when we really see at works, no one can only be reduced in one category. So, I understand that the curator has to make categories, but in fact, all the frames are always too little to welcome the quality and the intention and the concept of the works. So let's begin now. I will read with you. This was a curator's statement, and I have put in fat the major words for me, which is ongoing dialogue between mobility and stability, but that offers no definitive answer. Of course, life is dynamic, so we cannot have any definitive answer. And maybe one of my thoughts about art, any art, is, in fact, we are here to propose a kind of manifestation of our perception of time. We all share one thing together, is time. But all of us, we have different way to express it. So maybe it's a main theme of every art expression, it is, in fact, time. Desired sense of permanence and stability. About permanence, we all know that we are, at the same time, living in a form of permanent and breaks. This is also a base of life, and the base for the sociology studies, where they have invented the notion of emergencies. And what I like in this term of emergencies, that in fact it has two meanings. One meaning for me is urgent, and the second is about growing forces. So I think we are concerned by both, something which can be urgent and something about how to find the emerging forces, the growing forces. And in fact, the difficult role of a jury is to find that, because we are used to see works where we are in contact with our own stability and permanence of feelings, and then how to welcome new things. This is one of the major difficulties of a jury, to distinguish the new things, new contribution, that even if they hurt our sensibility, that we feel that they can contribute to an evolution of the human perceptions. So the desire, time, I continue, time is inherently impermanent and space changeable. I would like to add a third aspect to these two, time and space, which is material, as a third pole linked with the 2 hours through energy. And this will be I will develop this in the next slide. So we can see, thanks to my previous lecturer, that there are many entrance doors to read works. We can see skills, tools, techniques, references, concepts. I can add that the physical, where does the work, and this is very important for me. In fact, it is maybe the most important. Where does the work speaks to me? Where? Not how. Where? In my body. We can feel that sometimes we have some kind of emotion that can be just in the head, or just in the eyes, or maybe in the heart, or maybe in the stomach, or maybe in where we breathe, and sometimes for our souls. So where does it, sometimes in our sexual parts also. And of course, this first is approach, the physical approach of our perception and emotions is very important. And I really think that all the other things, all the other constructions will come afterwards. So we have to be conscious where in my body does the work speaks first. As far as I know, I have 30 minutes, so I've already eaten 10. And also, because I introduced that I had a little time to prepare this, I choose to go at the essential for me of the perception, and probably it will not fit your first perception. So this engage a debate, and I hope we will be able to have it after with Chimian and you. Also, last point, I choose to never choose the door of the technique to explain the work. At that level, in this exhibition, we can consider that the techniques is assumed by every artist. So maybe because I'm a Frenchman, I like to think in structure and to try to find, in fact, what are the links in between the concepts. So existential manifestation, for me, I could propose that it is something in between space, material, and identity. So it's a kind of challenge between these three. And if we focus on existential manifestation, all the three are concerned. If you change the space, you change the work. If you change the material, you change the work. And if you change the identity, the identity of the artist, you will change the work too. So there is a kind of balance in between all these three, of course, including in the question of time. That already introduced that it concerns every people and expressions. When I speak about material, it is not only material, it is of course the tools and the techniques and many aspects, the skills and many aspects of that. And when I speak about the space, all kinds of spaces, can be physical spaces, can be psychological spaces, can be social spaces, etc. And I let you add to this list what you can. So let's begin. I have, I'm sorry for the artists who are here in the room, but anyway, the pieces are, the works are in the exhibition, but I had no title and no name, so I just see the works and give my key word about it. So, in between to master or not. So this is a very important topic in the ceramic field, and I think we already a little bit touched it yesterday when I spoke about Bachelard and his book, The Clay or the Earth and the Dream of the Will, or the Dream of the Volunteer. What Bachelard wanted to say. He said that in fact, I say after him that we can have two possibly an extreme attitude. The one is to just let the clay be and have its own response to our action. And the other is to try to master it. And we will see that these two positions, we will find them in a lot of work. So I introduce this by this question of mastering or not, and how we can discuss with the material about what is going to happen thanks to him. Remember, if we change the material, it will change something. So this is mastering or not. Of course, not only the material, it can be a relationship. You can want to master your husband or your wife, or not just let it be and have a relation with it. So it's a very different kind of interaction, in fact, with the others, material or people or world. So this is an existential manifestation, an existential position. I think the risk belongs to life. Accident also. How we can let it be and accept it. In this work, my first perception was it's not really geometric, it's not really organic, it's something who seems full, it is empty. So there is a lot of tension in it. And I think tension, which is my keyword for this work, is also a kind of existential manifestation. Space. For me, this work speaks about space, different kind of space. Other work in this, my proposition will speak about this different level of space. I consider there is three levels of spaces. There is an internal space, for example, a bowl, you have the inside who will hold the water. Very important in ceramics, the internal space. There is the external space of the form, and there is the space in between the things. And I think this one speaks about more the space in between the things. Mastering. Sometimes some work speaks more, sometimes some work speaks less. Also mastering. So there is a very big danger for me in mastering. Probably you have noticed that if I have to have a choice in between mastering and let it be, I will choose let it be. Here I choose the skin as a communication space. Maybe something in between outside and inside. Okay, I know this artist. I invited her to my school to have a lecture and demonstration workshop. And I think it is very easy to see in her work, just by seeing it, the kind of purity and simplicity. And I was very surprised how open a work can be just by dealing with simple and pure actions. If I have to resume, the action is cut. Oh, by the way, these verbs of action, very often we put, and I agree with the old master from this when he said that poetry is not concerned by meaning but by feeling, something like that he said yesterday. Very often we think too much, in fact, and And we do not consider that there is value in very simple actions. Sorry, I didn't speak about this one. Yes, I was impressed by this one, by the limit of the untouched. It's like a miracle, you know. Like, yeah. The untouched is also a manifestation of existence. You can touch very bodily. We have seen this in the water lecture yesterday. Sorry, you are here. Lecture yesterday, touch. And also some people like the opposite attitude. Feeling of the untouched. This work is very provocative for me, and we spoke a lot of time in the frame of the jury about this work and another work that I think I'm not in the presentation now. So at the same time, comic and cosmic. At the same time, you can see a manga and you can see God spraying thought to material. A powerful breath. Maybe another point for me in this work, we all think in our society that we are so powerful. Of course it is not, but it's a danger for our society that every individuality thinks too much for himself, so powerful, can destroy, can go through. So it's kind of very metaphysical and straight way of expressing. At the skin of the skin, of course, ceramic is very concerned by the skin. Repetition, meditation, and maybe a little bit feeling of seclusion. For me, maybe. I hope you have other entrance door for you. Kind of play. In fact, in this life, we are allowed to play. Let's play together. You know, it's very important. When I see Ali on presentation, first thing that I was impressed was his smile from the very beginning. Very important, play and have good time. You know. So this work speaks about existence manifestation through play. Another kind of play with the three spaces I have spoken before. Internal, external, in between. Well, as human beings, we are concerned by verticality, horizontality, and the dynamic in between the two. So, for me, it is about the tension between the two. And also, I feel the heavy presence of the body. Simulation. As I said before, time is everywhere, and in this work especially. Maybe I could propose that to live is to exist. To live somewhere is to exist. So, in a kind of how can I say in English? Yeah, a little decorative way. It shows that something is maybe living here. The form of hybridization. So we have a very better word in French, for my ears at least, which is métissage. Métissage, of course, has to be translated by hybridization, but métissage is more about how two can produce one different. And hybridization. Forms, play with forms, and each time different, but linked like a family, in fact. It was very hard for me to find some keyword for this work. I would like to propose separation. And separation is a very important topic in existential manifestation. For example, for women, I consider that woman life is a lot of separations. So they are more used to separation than men. Maybe you're not okay with this, but it's my thinking about the difference between men and women and separation. Many work speaks about the emptiness of the ball, and I think this work introduced another way to feel it. My first feeling of this proposition, of this work, was about smell. And sometimes you can have works that speaks to you not only at the level of the forms, but at other levels. For example, a work can be a piece of ceramic can provoke in you some kind of sounds or smell or other kind of perception, body perceptions. And people interested in this could read anthroposophy and, for example, Rudolf Steiner, who has really developed this approach of the symbiosis of the senses. Structure, free, and touch. I think both are, three of them are very important in our life. Maybe, for me, if I have a reference, it's maybe jazz. There is structure, there is freedom, and there is a touch of the people who is playing. The poetic of the brittleness. Fragility belongs to existence, of course. It was not easy for me for this work, I have to admit. I propose emptiness and its manifestation, but I still have questions about the place of emptiness, which is, you know, in the Eastern world, you speak about the chi, the vital energy, and here is empty. So for me, it's very strange. Here and nowhere. So maybe it's something who is connected to a contemporary world, I don't know. This is one of my students. I try not to push her too much. It's not easy, you know, because when you know people, what are you supposed to do? Push or not push? So I try to be as impartial as I can. So it's about material experiment and maybe the anticipated disaster. And we all carry this anticipated disaster. It belongs to human being. We hope the best, and we also carry the disaster. And I will finish with this vertiginous assembly with a verb of in the Bible which say, "Hope it will hold." I thank you so much for your attention.
跟Jack认识很久了，所以知道他的个性。那他对东西的诠释，而且是非常的直接。那来自于从事陶瓷工作那么久的时间，而且对全球化的了解有一定的程度。我想他刚刚对作品的这个诠释是非常一针见血，而且非常直接的。大家应该可以透过他的演讲里面去了解得到。那基本上我们今天2个讲座 根据我们楼上这次有来参加的展览的作品的一些从他们个人的角度的诠释或者是去说明，已经有一定的程度，可以让各位学员来去了解。那是不是针对他们刚刚所谈到的一些使用材料的问题啦，还是有创作态度的这方面的想法？各位有没有什么问题想要提出来问他们的？
我今天来晚了几分钟，我 miss 掉那个 Hopeman 先生的前面一部分，他的题目就是 manifestation existential。我想要知道他是不是这个 existential 是不是那个Jean Paul Sartre 的那个存在主义的这个名词加以应用在陶艺的艺术的欣赏上。如果是的话，那个 existential， 请他用是不是可以
One by one. Okay, I didn't want to speak too much about existentialism, which is a philosophical movement. You spoke about Jean-Paul Sartre. We could speak also about Merleau-Ponty, which is a very important philosopher, maybe more important for us than Jean-Paul Sartre, about existentialism, because he was concerned by phenomenology. But I have to say that I'm not responsible for the thematic. I just received it last week and have to give a response. So it's not my fault.
Could you please, for my personal benefit, explain what is meant, what the Sartre meant in 1 or 2 sentences?
Very easy. Man is responsible. It means that not dependently that where you come from, your culture, your identity, your psychology, you are responsible. And this is, in my mind, very important to understand, especially if we look at the big disaster of this world. We are responsible. I mean the wars, I mean the environment, I mean we are responsible for the future and we are responsible for ourselves. It's how I understand this.
Thank you.
邱老师，他这样回答可以吗？好，那各位还有没有什么问题？没有的话，我可不可以问你一个问题？
我等等吧。
好，邱老师。
Hopeman 先生用了一个 métissage， 这个 métissage 好像就是不同种族的人的混血，然后这个一般来说这个混血这个 métis 常常都比这个纯粹的，比如说华人跟华人、美国人、白人跟白人生下来的孩子，常常比例上呢都会显得，或者是一种主观的感觉会比较漂亮一点。那么他是不是应用在他的作品的解释上？
Yes, for me, métissage is the final end of human beings. And also, did you hear the difference between hybridization and something like this? Hybridation?
Hybrid.
Hybrid, yes.
Hybrid.
Hybrid, yes. And métissage. Métissage is very soft, is very tender for the ears. And hybrid is very rough, you know. So I like métissage first because of the sounds of the yeah. And also, well, on the paper, I couldn't marry my wife, for example. I come from Jewish tradition, she's Muslim, we have 2 kids, who they are. And they're beautiful, very talented, and so I'm happy of this situation, and I understand a lot of things from my wife. She's a storyteller, for example, which fits very well with our activity. You know, storytelling is a kind of need for human beings, as well as ceramic also is a need for human beings. So I think all these métissages are so interesting. And of course, as Qingyuan said, I think that I try to contribute as far as I can in between East and West. Also, I would like to encourage also the North and South. And maybe it will be the role of the future of the RAC to have more to look not after the rich people and collectors, but also after the people from the South too. I just want to continue about South, sorry. For example, we consider that when we have to wait, we are losing time. In Africa, where I have lived for 2.5 years, when you have to wait, you make friends. You earn your life. Very different. And we have to learn from that, I think.
有没有其他的问题 ？Walter.
Richard, hi. Nice to hear a little bit about where you're from and what you've done and the way you've looked at work. I was curious a little bit about your opening statement about being a painter and educated in that neighborhood, and then coming to this one. And do you feel? I'm asking this also because I've seen other artists do this. Do you feel there? Obviously, there's a set of knowledges within ceramics that one needs to become familiar with. But as someone trained in arts that aren't ceramics, I would think you would have, a kind of point of view that could be of interest, to the practitioner, from your sets of knowledges outside the field. I mean, but you sort of expressed some discomfiture in there. So, how do you feel about that as coming in from an outside, looking at something that would bring a whole set of rules or ideas or points of view that we don't necessarily bring to the work,
A tricky question, Walter, and I fear I'm going to disappoint you, because in my daily professional life of teaching painting, I talk about teaching the craft of painting.
Okay.
In some senses, I'd like to take the idea of an education in art, or is an aesthetic education, and ground it in the notion of discipline and craft. And I think to some extent, contemporary fine art practice has evacuated that space. To some extent, I look across from the world of fine arts, and I look at the way in which, and this is notwithstanding all sorts of difficulties around status and hierarchies and all that. If I put that aside for a moment, I look into the world of a craft education, and where I see is students who get deeply engaged in sets of conventions and traditions, technologies, material sensibilities, and I think those are transferable skills. And to me, that is a form of education, regardless of what discipline it might be, is one I think we as educators have some obligation to pass on to students. The fact is, we have to prepare students for a world that we don't know about, and we can't presume to know what that might be. But if we can give them the skills, which is about tradition, history, knowledges, technology, but also to understand that the implications of deviating from those things and what innovation that might bring about, we are at least trying to give young people of this world the best possible chance to make the world whatever it is that they're going to make it. A world which I am probably not likely to recognise or be familiar with. I hope that goes some way to answering your question, which is a difficult question.
Yeah.
I think we see a lot of within the world of contemporary visual arts. There is a lot of boundary blurring. I find some degree of security. What's so nice about ceramics is that it's unashamedly about one material, albeit just sticky mud. It nevertheless is one material, and the extraordinary innovation that can emanate from just dealing with the possibilities of that one material. I'm kind of jealous.
A little back. I asked the question from a point of irritation I had a bit ago at the Denver Art Museum when Peter Schjeldahl came and gave a lecture, and I found it kind of curious that he immediately apologized for who he was and that he didn't know enough about ceramics to really talk about it, which I thought was completely daft because he knows a lot about lots of things and he could make some beautiful observations, So that's what I said, just tell us what you know from your point of view because it'll be interesting. And I think you